shake the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome to Life in Red.
It's okay to not be okay. That's going to be the theme of this podcast. And I'm pleased to welcome back to the podcast, Amanda Stercyzk. How are you?
Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
You know what? As I just started off, riding those waves of emotions, and I know we talked about this in email, and talked about how we're both kind of dealing with this new situation. And I thank you for coming on for doing this and sharing some thoughts and feelings, because I know this is a vulnerable spot. But a lot of people are trying to make light of things and be positive, and I really respect that, and I understand why people are definitely trying to go that route. But I know for myself, it's not resonating with me. And I know I put out a tweet earlier this week, like, I find it's getting harder, not easier. Like, the normal isn't coming, and I just find it getting harder to kind of like cope with what's going on. I don't know if you're kind of feeling the same thing.
Yeah, well, I think the idea that this is the new normal is problematic. And I actually saw a mental health professional on one of the news shows one evening who said the same thing, is like, don't call it the new normal. It's a temporary state. And as soon as she said it, I went, yeah, exactly. You don't want to feel like this is that we should get used to this. Like, it's a horrible situation for everyone. And if we try to normalize it, then it becomes this is just the way we live now. And I think I said to you in one of the emails I sent you, is I'm trying to think of it as a being on hold. You know, when you get put on hold, when especially like you call the bank or your cell phone provider, and it's like, or like EI lately, CRA for your CERB, it's like you're on for an hour or something. So the music's going, and it's like, let's just pretend we're all on hold from, our regularly scheduled lives. And that sort of helps me sometimes when, the days seem to all kind of meld into one.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I almost find, like, for me, somebody like, I have like general anxiety disorder. Like, the fact that it's so uncertain, and that no one really knows how long this is going to go on. I know you hear people saying like the economy will open up back soon, some things will start getting back to normal, but then you have on the other end that it's like, until we have a vaccine, there's definitely going to be some element of this life that we're living now, with physical distancing and working from home and doing these kind of patterns of isolation in waves as we deal with outbreaks. And there's not really a comforting factor for me. And I think that's what I find so difficult, because even at this point, I'm like, okay, like, if maybe I can make it till June doing this in some aspect, but if it goes longer than that, like, I really have a challenging time thinking about how I'm going to be dealing with this,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No, I totally understand what you.
You're like a fitness author, former personal trainer, doing lots of things, and especially an advocate for moving your body. I know for myself, I'm still exercising, but like we were talking off mic, it's definitely harder to get through those workouts with doing it from home and not going to the gym and not having that kind of change of pace and scenery of doing things. Are you still trying to incorporate that into your life? Are you finding that this pandemic has kind of hindered that like motivation to try to stay active?
I think I've had one day where I didn't go outside for a walk. And I've always had a hard time sleeping. I've always had insomnia. So I didn't sleep that night. I don't know if I would have slept if I'd gone out for a walk. But in terms of when you hear the mental health professionals talk, they say really the key factors are good sleep, good eating, and good exercise. And like I said, I've never been good at sleeping. uh, I've been really good at overeating while I've been at home. And so for me, it's like, well, I know I need to exercise. I know I need to move my body, whether it's, an actual dedicated workout or just puttering around the house.
Right.
So I'm trying to make sure that I do it every single day and do more than just, like a lot of times with my books on moving more, I'm just like, you only need to move a little bit and sneak it in. And in a regular day-to-day world, when we're out and about and running errands and going to the office and yada yada and socializing, I think that holds true. But I feel, at least for me personally, I need to have more exercise in my day to to feel like I have a little bit of control over what's happening, because that's part of the challenge, right? We have, like, everything that's happened is through no fault of our own. Like, we have lost all control, and it's everything, all these changes have been thrust upon us. And so, at least if I control my workouts and try to control that I not eat so much, I feel like I'm kind of able to bring back some control to an out of control situation.
Right. I've had almost the opposite happen. I started off, um, eating a lot and not being able to stop snacking. But, as it probably started about 2 weeks ago, like I almost, other than breakfast when I first wake up, I almost don't eat or don't feel the need to eat almost through the rest of the day.
Right.
And I find that really, because that's never been me. I've always been like an insatiable eater.
Yeah.
And it's only been through like self-control to not like just eat mountains of food. But like this time around, I don't even find myself having an appetite.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's really weird. That's definitely a new feeling. And it's hard to tell what's related to this pandemic and what's not. What is something maybe you have to worry about a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's like so confusing.
Yeah, I know. It's well, and like I said, I'm not a mental health professional,
Hmm.
but I know the mental health professionals out there are busy now and are going to be even busier when everything starts to get relaxed and people are able to go out more, because of how we're all trying to navigate through this reality.
Yeah, it's to me that like the economic fallout and that mental health fallout worry me more than the actual virus does in terms of the impact it's going to have on people.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
not to
think
diminish the impact of the virus, but I'm like genuinely worried about like what's after, like and what will plague us for months, if not years ahead.
for sure. And especially since they're talking about possible second waves coming, and I've heard everything from end of the summer till next winter, for another wave. So we're kind of all in this heightened state of anxiety, worrying about, can we do things? What can we do? How have the rules changed? What's different today?
Yeah. It's like it's kind of robbed a lot of what it means to be human, in certain ways, like connection with people. Um, well, I like you can still get outside and stuff, but like still it still removes a big element of physical activity and nature and all those things, to a certain extent.
Hmm.
It's robbed us of a lot of seeing people that are our loved ones and our friends and the people who make us happy. We can't go out and see them, so it's taking a lot of those things. And some of the things that when you go talk to your therapist or read mental health articles that are like kind of those cornerstones of health. For some people it's financial, so they're getting stressed and worrying about, can I afford rent or my mortgage, and all those types of things. Can I afford food? Will the supply chain last? it kind of like affects in certain ways all those pinnacles of health that makes us who we are.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think too of all the whether you call them frontline workers, essential workers,
Mm,
or whatnot, just everything they're having to go through in health facilities, and truck drivers and restaurants trying to do takeout orders, and grocery store clerks. And like someone said the other day that their child works in a grocery store, and a customer was just overwhelmed with the rules and was taking it out, unfortunately, on this employee, which is, it's not right. But at the same time, you can understand, that people are just so tightly wound and stressed out about everything and how things keep changing, that they, unfortunately directed it at someone who didn't
mm.
deserve it.
Yeah, that we're relying on all these people that, you know, a month or two ago, a lot of people wouldn't even show respect. And now they're the ones who are, being called heroes. Like you
Yeah.
said, the people making minimum wage, um, people that, maybe cleaning staff or, truck drivers, like all these people that there was a certain element of snobbery and people looking down on these jobs. It's like, oh, well, now like the whole country's running on their backs in ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I know healthcare workers, I have a lot of friends like who are nurses, or I have a couple of friends who are doctors, and um, I can't speak for everyone. They seem in good spirit, and that they're dealing with the reality, but also still remaining optimistic and positive.
Mm-hmm.
But it does worry me. One of my friends had a scare and had to get tested because they got sick after dealing with one of someone who passed away from it and had to go on quarantine until they could get their test. And it's like, what is the long-term implications of that on these healthcare workers, and what's that going to lead to for them down the road?
Right.
They're trained for this, but at the same time, that's a lot of trauma and things to think about, for like one human mind
Mm-hmm.
to deal with.
Is your friend okay?
Yeah, so I should, with the caveat, they tested negative, thankfully. So it was just a cold or a little bit of the flu. So all good on that end, but still going
Don't you
through the
find
scare.
don't you find, speaking of colds, like whenever you have a cough or a sore throat or a little bit of a headache, like a tension headache, you're like, oh crap, is this like,
Yeah.
fuck, am I getting it now?
I had that last week. It was so funny. I was doing a mental health workshop with a previous guest, Sarah, um, from Occupied Mind, but they did one, and I literally said off the top as we're going through, like, how are we feeling? I'm like, I have a headache right now, and I'm terrified it's gonna like manifest into COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I remember just before this outbreak happened, like I was sick with something, and I didn't really think about something, like didn't really think about anything. But then once this happened, I was like, shit, did I have COVID? Oh God, and it just worries you, and then you go outside, you want to touch your face is all of a sudden itchy, and you're like, no, you can't do that. Or
Or I
and
feel guilty, like I'm like scared to tell people if I have a sore throat or a cough, because I'm like, oh my God, what if I've gotten other people sick? What if I have it and I've gotten
right,
people out and strangers sick and my family and everything? And I'm like, no.
right. And you heard, I used to be watching the news like pretty regularly throughout my workday, but I've stopped that, starting this week because I've been in a funk. But there's a lot of talk of that, the guilt and shame that also comes along with this virus, whether you have it or not. But like, I can only imagine, I haven't seen it happen, but someone coughing in public,
Mm-hmm.
allergy season's coming. Um, I'm just like waiting for that reaction of people where you cough or sneeze in
And
public, and
everybody jumps
the
back.
whole store like looks at you, and you're just like, it's
Just a tickle in my throat.
it's um it's definitely an interesting, sociological and psychological kind of human not an experiment, but just like observation,
Hmm.
that how it's all changed our perspective on all these certain things that we wouldn't think twice about a month ago, a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Well, a couple of things that I sort of hope come out of it is number one, uh, minimum wage goes up because most of these people, like permanently to a living wage, because most of the people working, personal support workers in the long-term care facilities and the grocery store clerks and all these people that we're saying are the people are our heroes and keeping things running don't make a living wage.
Mm,
And then the other thing that I hope comes out of it is that people actually stay home when they're sick.
right.
So many, or keep their kids home, right? When my kids were little, the school was a petri dish because someone always sent their kid to school when they shouldn't have, and it just went around the classroom.
Right. I know I'm guilty of it. I would go in, and that's I was like, I literally couldn't. I would still try to go into work because I'd feel guilty of not
Well, and
working.
it's also an employer thing, right? Like I used to work in HR, and the thing is, the employers have to have the right programs in place so people A don't feel guilty or B don't feel like they're going to lose their job if they call in sick.
Yeah. It's funny. I like my boss would always send me home right away if I tried to come in sick, which was what I needed. But
Mhm.
it's like something intrinsically like in a lot of us that we're just trained to like, no, we got to go to work. We got to fight through it. We got to, I know it's wrong, but like I was just always under that mentality, even though I knew I wouldn't be in trouble. It
Yeah,
was just kind of like a personal thing. It's really weird.
yeah.
Like I remember being so proud. I didn't miss a day of work other than the vacation I took for an entire calendar year.
Hmm.
It's like what badge of honor is that? I'm not getting a gold star.
Yeah, exactly. It's not great too.
Yeah,
And then
seriously.
you're only getting a gold star for attendance.
Yeah. Um, one thing that interested me about this whole thing, and I haven't really talked to anybody really about it, but interesting to hear your thoughts on this. So I'll start with the caveat that I support the government mandates and everything. Like so I'm not against what they're doing and ordering us to stay home and everything. But it is to me a very interesting thought that, you know, how much control the government has over our lives, that if for whatever reason, if you got a bad prime minister or whatever and they chose to, you know, cook up a conspiracy or something about happening, how much they could actually like take away of our lives and order us to do things and give us fines. I just found that really interesting. And how you can see how some governments are able to kind of take control of their countries and their citizens.
Yeah, and it is a excellent point, and I think we are seeing it in some countries where people aren't getting as much information as other nations, and it can totally, I mean, I'm not a Doug Ford guy. Like I didn't vote for the guy, but he's stepped up and he's doing, he's showing himself as a leader, looking out for everybody in the province, not just, the conservative wing of the province. And you're right, like we could easily lose a lot of civil rights if the wrong person was in charge.
Yeah,
I
as
mean, I
long
think
as
sorry.
everyone thinks it's the right thing to do. Um,
Well, and that we realize it's like it's kind of, the greater good, right? We're all in this together. If I want to stay healthy, you need to stay healthy, and it doesn't matter, what your job or your station in life or whatever is. We all have to pull together and do the right thing so everybody can get out of this alive.
yeah, and I thought it was early on when this was happening and everything started getting closed down. We started getting put into work or working from home, and um, they've used it in a good way that we're getting all these social programs they said we've never had money for, and all of a sudden now there's money for, and all those things.
Hmm.
That's a whole other different point.
Right.
But it just was an interesting point to me that I was just like, wow, if all of a sudden the government said, we need to start doing this because X, and X turned out not to be true, but we were made to believe it was true. It's like, again, it goes back to that human psychology, sociology thing where, yeah, we're all of a sudden like, all this, we've just changed drastically the way we live and the way we do things in less than a month. I mean, it's been
Hmm.
6 weeks now, but in less than a month, in like 2 weeks, what we knew is like, I would say almost flipped 180 in a lot of ways.
Well, and so, my background is in psychology, and I used a lot of behaviors change stuff in my
Right,
self-help
right.
books. And I keep thinking about, like you said, we've changed like an entire, most of Canada, the better part of the world, has like on a dime switched their behavior. When like look at the multi-billion-dollar self-help industry with all these behavior change models, we try to get people to change their behavior, and it's like I can't wait to see the studies that come out of this on the psychology side about, are there things, are there lessons to be learned for how we can nudge people, towards better behaviors, be it around, better eating or more exercise or drug and alcohol abuse, that type of thing. Like I just find it really fascinating to
Yeah,
see how much has changed so fast, and how, I mean, we're all grumbling at home, but pretty much everybody's sort of accepted that we need to do this.
yeah, exactly. I I don't know if you have an answer, but like, do you with the psychology background, do you have any hypotheses of what it is? Is it the we all have kind of like that common goal or enemy? Is it the scare tactic that if you don't listen, something bad's going to happen to you or someone you love? Like, is it more of a positive behavioral change or more of a negative behavioral change, or at least
Well,
the part that's leading us to the behavior change?
I think it's definitely culturally influenced, right? Like I think in Canada, it's not a, you know, it's not a you're going to be punished or this is, kind of a mentality. I think it's
Mm,
more we all, we all, for the most part, we all sort of accept the welfare state and the fact that, we need to take care of the most vulnerable. And in this situation, we're all vulnerable. So there's just a generalized acceptance that, this is important for all of us.
hmm. Yeah, you're right. I do look forward to the studies because, like, why can't we use this? I'll use the word energy, even though that's not quite the right word, but the to like cure cancer or to come up with a treatment to end poverty. You like you said, and all those behavioral changes. It's like if we can use the collective human power and spirit to try to fight this disease, why do we not do this in certain areas for other things that are like ravaging the human population, right? Like, why does it have to be like a acute pandemic to, like, I understand why, but why couldn't it be used in other ways if we can do it for this
No,
in
it's
two
a fair
weeks?
point. Exactly. And I think part of it is just we're all so busy with our own lives when
Mm,
it's not a global pandemic that it's hard to get everybody aligned on the same. We
yeah,
all have different values. And so, but this one, it just, people realize it's important that we're all aligned.
right. Yeah, it's true. Switching gears a little bit, but getting into back to the theme of the, not alone, it's okay to not be okay. So, I started this thing for the Ottawa Distress Center where I'm just trying to get, people together and share their stories or a nice message or anything and just encourage um, donations to at least the Ottawa Distress Center, although in the grand scheme of things, a local distress center in whatever
Hmm.
city or town you're you're in. I think the goal, what I want to try to convey to people is that message that you aren't alone, and people through all these different backgrounds from all these different parts of society are experiencing this in some way when it comes to their mental health. What are some things that you're doing And subsequently, what are some things that you worry the most about when it comes to this pandemic and the new social implications that have been imposed on us?
Mhm. So in terms of what I'm doing, like I said, the exercise is a big one
Yeah.
for me. We actually, to support a local gym, we rented some of their equipment from them
Mm.
and set up like a little small mini gym in one corner of our garage. So we've got 3 sets of dumbbells and a bench, just to get some other type of physical activity, and also trying to go for a walk every single day. Um, I don't know if you've ever watched the show Lip Sync Battle. I love that show. I always imagine myself on it.
What's the highlights? So I know. Yeah, I know it.
And I would like, which song would I sing? So when I go for my walks, like I put the music up really loud and I try to find somewhere quiet I can walk, not having to be near other people. So I can do my own little lip sync battle with myself.
Well,
as
what
I'm
song would you
walking.
sing? I think that's important.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. A lot of Canadian rock. Have to get the hip in there, and
Right. Kim Mitchell, Glass
yeah,
Tiger.
yeah, for sure. Hang on, I'm thinking. My brain blanks as soon as someone asks me.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pulling up my list here. Who else is? What's the songs? Well, Sky Diggers, of course. Big Sugar.
Okay, right.
Sloan, Headstones. I love the Headstones.
Oh wow, yeah, really into that, supporting that CanCon.
Yeah, Odds. Well, they're only partly Canadian, but and Jan Arden, of course. I mean, you always have to have a Joni Mitchell and Jan Arden
I think
song
our
on the
playlists are a
list.
little different.
Yeah. Why? Who would you lip sync battle to?
Oh, you know what? I would, if honestly, I would do a Disney song.
Right on.
I would definitely go Make a Man Out of You. I might even do Reflection from Mulan. That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch American Idol?
No.
No. Do you know who Adam Lambert is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I should have said he covering for Queen now, more
Hmm.
notably. Anyways, he has this song from back when I was in high school. It's called For Your Entertainment. It's like, I don't know. It's just a cheeky, like almost strep song.
Yeah.
And I used to do it all the time in high school, and I had this whole performance routine to it.
Yeah. Well, and it
So,
brings back a good memory of
yeah, exactly. Get the
yeah.
dancing going.
Right. Yeah. That's nice. It's funny. So you were saying about his song from high school. This is probably a little before your time, but I remember the first LP I ever had as a kid was Free to Be You and Me by Marlo Thomas and Friends. It came out in 1972. And the other day, one of the songs on it is called It's Okay to Cry. It's all right to cry. And I don't know, I was sitting on the couch and I was just kind of feeling overwhelmed. And the song just popped into my head. And it's like, it goes, it's all right to cry. Crying gets the sad out of you and it might make you feel better. And so I'm like singing it in my head and then I start crying. I'm like, it's true, I do feel better from crying. And I just thought, oh yeah, this is a perfect song for right now.
Right. It's weird, those moments, when it just kind of comes on by coincidence or something, but it was almost like that right timing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. You go on walks and lip sync battle.
Yeah, and just I like the sleeping thing. I've never been good at sleeping, so I'm trying to like listen to. I actually downloaded on Apple Music rain sounds, like 6 hours of rain sounds that are supposed to help you sleep. So if I wake up and I can't fall back asleep, I pop my earbuds in and try to listen to the rain. And it was actually really nice last night. I did it, and I mean, you saw how cold it was this morning. My walk this morning was not fun, but last night it was like summer rain, and it felt like it was the middle of July, one of those awesome evenings where you're sleeping with the windows open, and it's just you can hear the rain, and it just like everything feels right.
Right. Yeah, that smell comes through the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, I was like, and I partly didn't even want to fall asleep because I just wanted to lie there and listen to this rain, this summer rain.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there was like an April tornado blizzard outside.
Yeah, exactly.
I was out for a run, and then like just before it all happened, and oh God, it's like, why do I live here? Running down the Ottawa River park or pathway. Oh,
Yeah. And
it
all
was
the
bad.
snow.
Yeah. Oh my God, just hitting me in the face. Like I can't see. I'm like, this is stupid.
Well, the one plus is it actually probably kept people inside for a couple of days. So in terms of physically distancing, the one thing
True.
I find with the like I'm a rule follower. So I'm okay with like the changes when you go to the store and how you have to line up and wipe the cart down and follow the arrows up and down and line up over here. And I don't mind
Sure.
that. But the one thing that I lose sleep over are the people who don't follow the rules
Right.
and they're just like, right on top of you. And you're like, have you not heard? Like, we're not
Yeah.
supposed to be this close to each other.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just get so stressed. And I heard one comedian saying their 4-year-old will like be out and people on the street, she's screaming at them, 6 feet, 6 feet. I'm thinking, I want to do that. I want to scream at them too, but I can't. I
Right.
just
Yeah.
want to grumble about it and get stressed out.
Yeah, there's those interesting things now. I was going into the grocery store on Sunday, and like there, you're lined up and you can't really pass people. And we're going through the entrance, and this woman, and she was a bit older, so I'm not going to get angry, but she stops like right in the middle of the doorway and like starts putting on her gloves and her mask, but you there's no room to go by
Go
her, and
around,
you want
yeah.
to follow the rules, and there's like this big lineup happening, and it's like, you know some of the people miss the social cues,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, like it's okay, try to not get mad at this person, but it's just like, oh my goodness. I had some guy going down the wrong way of the one-way aisle, which they have now, and he's
Mm-hmm.
on his phone, not even looking, and he bumped into somebody.
Oh no.
I'm like, dude, no, what are you doing?
I know, and I feel like the arrows have been there long enough now that it's not like it's it just happened yesterday and I haven't learned the new rules.
No, people just don't pay attention.
No.
Like there was a couple weeks ago, one woman was going the wrong way, and another woman was kind of like, excuse me, like there's things on the like the arrows, you're going the wrong way, and she's just or does a huge eye roll. Ugh, just turns it around and walks away. I'm like, ugh. It's those, but those are the type of people that are gonna probably delay getting back to normal in certain ways.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge, right? It's like, and you see people doing things they shouldn't be, and you're like, oh, God, can't you just, well, it'll be faster if we all just do what they've asked us to do.
Yeah, and it's like, do we have a responsibility if you see someone breaking the rules to do something about it?
Hmm.
And I find where I'm on that line, I'm like, I don't know if that's the like if I see someone doing something wrong, do I have a moral responsibility to be like, hey, don't do that, go home, or you know be safe, or should I just like shake my head and go about my day?
Yeah, I really struggle with that one too. I mean, I feel like within my family, I have a responsibility to, make sure we're all on the same page about what we should be doing. But in public, I don't know. Maybe we
Right.
all should, but it's hard to do, right?
I know, and I don't want to like bully people into submission so they listen either. Like I know that's a big thing on social media, kind of
Yeah.
like getting the public shame going.
Well,
Like,
and there's lots of situations where like they can't, maybe it's a healthcare worker that's just come off a 12-hour shift and this is the only time they can get to the store, or it's like a single mom who doesn't have anyone to watch her kids, so she has to bring them to the store with her. So she's shopping in a group, even though they're saying one person per household, so we can't necessarily just assume that they're just not rule followers.
right. And there's like the people advocating to go to the grocery store once a week or like once a month, or it's like not everyone is in the same they can't do that. Like
Yeah,
if you have 3 or 4 kids, like you're gonna need milk or something more than once a month.
well, and also with, if they struggle with food insecurity, they don't have the money to buy food for a whole month.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. Um, so what are some of the things that, you know, and feel free to only share with you're comfortable with, but that's,
Mhm.
worrying you, that's keeping your anxiety up, or keeping holding you down a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I worry about my parents because they're
Right.
older,
Right.
and my dad has a number of health conditions, so we've sort of, um, we're keeping our distance from them. And I've done some grocery shopping for my mom where I just leave it in the garage. But, they still have to go to medical appointments, and she's, I'm just worried about like them getting sick. Also, our daughter has type 1 diabetes. So,
Right.
I wouldn't want her to get sick either. People with underlying conditions, it can be a challenge for them. I mentioned to you, I got laid off. I'd
Yeah.
gotten my dream job, and then a month in, we all got laid off. So I'm feeling a bit untethered in terms of work. Like, I actually was thinking the other day I should be updating my resume and looking for a job, but there's no jobs out there. Um, so I just sort of feeling like, they didn't, it's a temporary layoff. So they want to bring us all back, right? But we don't know when.
Right.
So, what do you do in the meantime? And although I am a writer and I've written 6 books, and the last 3 have been published in the last 3 months, they were all written long before this all happened. And it just was the way the editorial process went, that they were published February, March, and April.
Hmm.
But, I see a lot of fellow writers saying, hey, I wrote 2,000 words today. And I'm thinking, I got nothing. Like, I can't even think about sitting down. Like, there's no creativity right now in me to write either fiction or nonfiction. And then you're like, is it lost forever?
Mm.
Can I no longer write? Has this like pandemic crushed my, my creative spirit?
Yeah. Do you find like I struggle with like a lack of kind of purpose right now in ways?
Yeah, for sure. Like, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying about being untethered.
Okay.
And because my kids are older, they're pretty independent. So they, like a lot of times they're in their rooms for the whole day, and I only see them at dinner.
Right.
So
Right.
one thing I have been doing is I'm, like, before all of this, I was going in regularly to do workouts with my dad to help him, in terms of maintaining his strength and preventing a fall, and he was doing really well. So we've continued the workouts on Skype. So we're doing them. I just did one with him today before dinner. So that I find it really kind of helps me feel like I have a little bit of a purpose again. And I'm also, I'm partnering with the Ottawa Public Library to do some free, exercise classes for seniors via Zoom. So we just had a call today to kind of sort out dates and set up and everything. So those are going to happen in May. So that's like, I was actually supposed to start today for the library doing more fall prevention workshops. I did a series for them last fall,
Mm.
and I had a bunch this week and next week scheduled. And of course, they're not happening. Um, and I feel really, I really worry about older adults because they maybe don't have, the initiative or the expertise, or the resources to be able to do all these online workouts, or know what to do safely, which is why I love doing these fall prevention workshops with the library. So I'm excited that they said, yeah, we want you to come on the library Zoom and do a live class for them. And so then, I can help them like I'm helping my dad, so that they're, because if you're over 70, they've even told you to not go out for walks.
Yeah. Well,
So a lot of them are not getting any exercise at all.
yeah, and you look at countries, I know, I think it's like Sweden and the Netherlands are kind of doing a different approach where they're trying to gather herd immunity.
Hmm.
But even for them, that vulnerable populations, so seniors, they're not allowed out while the rest of society continues. And I can foresee that even when restrictions start getting lifted, here in Canada and in the States, and people are ready to resume some sort of like going back to work, that type of stuff, that there will still be that restriction, on seniors, from leaving their house and going about their normal day. And there was already a crisis of mental health issues with seniors, of loneliness and depression, and like you said, like with exercise and everything. And this could exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Well, it
right.
already is, but even continued on, like they don't have that light at the end of the tunnel somewhat like we do.
Yeah, and the physical and mental health are, like, they're not getting the exercise and having, the social isolation and the depression and the mental health issues are going to further impact their physical health, and make it tougher for them to remain independent.
Right. You got
Well,
to
one
think.
thing my daughter did, I was really impressed. She's was 16, just turned 17, a couple of weeks ago, and she had come to me at the beginning of April, and she said, I want to write a letter to a senior who's isolated, because they must be having a really hard time. And can you help me find one? So I reached out to a friend of mine who works with seniors, who's still able. Her company is still going into the retirement homes, and so I told her, what my daughter wanted to do, and within a couple of hours, she'd set up a Facebook group for writing letters and sending cards to isolated seniors. And so my daughter wrote a couple, and then all these other people wrote a ton. So over 400 cards and letters have been delivered to seniors who are isolated right now.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you know what, like, is the group open? Can people join that?
It's on Facebook. It's called Isolated Seniors. We kept it private only because she's sharing pictures of the seniors. But if you
Right.
can request to join, and Debbie and I can
Oh, okay. So you're
can let you
organizing
in.
that.
Yeah, we just didn't want to make it totally public, right? Because of the pictures being shared.
Right.
And like, there's lots of people, their kids were making cards for Easter and stuff. And it was so awesome because, in these retirement homes, they're in a home that they moved into for the social activities, and they're all confined to their rooms. They get their meals in there, and and some of them um, don't have internet.
Right.
So they don't
Oh,
have
jeez.
computers or cell phones or anything. So they're basically on their own in their rooms. So it was really wonderful to see all these people sort of jumping on and being able to get these cards and letters delivered to them.
Yeah, that's a wonderful initiative. I know my mom, she for a long time was a nurse at a retire, or I guess it was more of a nursing home,
Hmm.
and she became, and once I was older, like a director of care at a couple homes. And just hearing the stories of people being alone, and you know even in the nicer homes and with like a little bit more money and more activities and social things, that yeah, it's just it's sad. It really is that people live all their lives, and then this is kind of like what we do to them in ways like, okay, now go off and be by yourself and go in this home so no one really has to see you unless we want to.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. Well, even seniors living in their own homes. I mean, like, my parents are still in their own home, but I'm thankful that they have each other, because we can't go over and see them, right? Like, my mom's
Hmm.
76 and my dad's 80, and they need to be really careful that they don't get sick. So I'm trying to, I do the Skype exercise with my dad, and then I do video chats with my mom, just so they don't feel so isolated.
Good for them knowing how to work all that stuff.
Oh, my mom's on Snapchat. My daughter taught her how to use Snapchat, so she loves it. She's got 4 grandkids, and she's all connected with all of them on
Oh, that's
Snapchat.
so fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. Because I one day I came down uh, at dinner. I'm like, Nana didn't text me back. I messaged her this morning. Normally I hear back, and my daughter's like, oh yeah, she's fine. I was she snapped me. I'm like, what are you talking about? So yeah.
That's seriously, that's one of the best things I've ever heard. Yeah, I don't even use Snapchat much anymore, so that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh no, she loves it because she stays connected with her grandkids that way. So yeah, it's
Right,
perfect.
right. And the pictures and the filters and oh yeah, it's
Hmm.
cute.
So every time, like before all this happened and they'd come over, one of the kids would show her a different thing. And so she was like learning all the things she could do and stuff.
Is there like a message you're sharing with your kids about this whole thing? Like I know my siblings are a lot younger, so they don't really understand what's going on, but like I can't imagine being a teenager where the I think back to being a kid, like a teenager and being in high school and like the littlest thing happening was the end of the world. It was the worst thing to happen to me ever. And it was
Hmm.
because like I couldn't get a pair of shoes or something.
Right.
Like the hormones and everyone's so dramatic. Like I don't know if you have a pulse on it, but like like is there something you're sharing with them, or do they just like mostly kind of understand what's going on and are just being patient about it?
Well, I mean, they're both my kids have really good heads on their shoulders, and um, like when it was kind of March break, at the beginning of March break, when it was still like, oh, school's shutting down. One's in school and one's kind of between high school and university. So they were still early on. They were still seeing their friends, but I was like, okay, just not a big group, and keep space. And they've always been good about washing their hands and all this, and then it got to a point where it was getting more serious, and I said to them, you guys, you need to stay home. You can't keep going out with your friends. Like, we have to start being stricter about this. And they kind of grumbled, but they understood, right, the importance of it. And they saw that, like my parents used to come over once a week for dinner, and
Mm,
now we're doing it all by video. So they sort of got the gravity of the situation. um, and they've just been really, I mean, they're bored, and
yeah.
we're all, like I said, I think we're all getting on each other's nerves at various points, but they're being pretty mature about it. And my daughter, like, she's in grade 11, so she has schoolwork to do. So we had, the other day, she was on a Google Classroom with a bunch of the kids from her math class. They were working out a problem. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to pull you off that because we have to get on a video call with Chio for your regular appointment.
Uh,
So, it's like we're just kind of all trying to navigate the new world, and they're staying up super late. Like, one goes to bed at 1 and one goes to bed at 4, but they get up when they get up and they do their stuff. And it's like, why would I tell them they have to go to bed at a certain time, or they can't be on their video game or whatever? Because what else are they going to do? Right.
yeah.
We more or less sort of said, like, do what you got to do to make this work. Like, home should be a happy place. Home shouldn't be stressful with like too much happening. So it's like, if you want to be on your PlayStation until 4 a.m., as long as you don't wake me up, have at her.
Yeah. I remember being 16 and yeah, staying up till 6 in the morning and like sleeping till 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's weird how and but even now my sleep schedule's totally changed. Like I used to go to bed at like 9 or 10. Now it's 12 or 1 and I'm up at like maybe 8:30 and then I'll just kind of roll out of bed and just walk to my living room and boop, I'm at work.
Yeah.
Like take like 5 steps.
Short commute.
Yeah, and pop on, look at my email. I'm like, okay, now I can go make coffee and breakfast. Like,
Yeah.
put in my morning dues.
Well, and that's where I think the challenge is with not getting enough physical activity, right? Like, you would be more active getting to work, even if you're driving there, because you have to walk out to your car and you get in the car and then you walk from your car into the building and then you're moving around the building.
Yeah, that's the
And
big
if
thing.
you're like standing up and taking 5 steps to, commute to work, you have more time to be sedentary. And that's, I think, part of the challenge. It's like, you can't bake every single minute of the day or do crafts or, you know, like write a great novel. There's times where you just have to like sit on the couch and veg and watch Netflix and just like not worry about it, but also make sure you get up and move a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's I know we talked about it when you were on here before. Like I know myself now that it's like a critical part of what I do. It's just you know, it's so much harder to find that motivation when it's in your own apartment, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just, and I feel bad. Like we were talking earlier, I'm doing my body combat classes like once or twice a week, and I'm like jumping around my apartment. I'm like, man, I really owe my downstairs neighbor a bottle of wine or something after this. Like,
Yeah.
sorry.
As long as it's not at 12 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? Well, and I think that's where, no, you're absolutely right. It is tough to get motivated. And I think that's where I'm trying to turn a corner personally and just, you know, like focus on the good sleeping, good eating, and good exercise as being the things that I can control, so that I have a little bit of control in this crazy situation where, you know, so much is out of our control.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the out of control and the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse for a person with anxiety than not knowing the final outcome, because you're going to race through every single scenario. And I think a lot of people now are experiencing, or at least noticeably experiencing, some sort of like major anxiety when it comes to a certain subject. I know I've seen a couple articles on that, that and grief, which is another
Mm-hmm.
interesting subject. I don't know if you read anything on any of those articles when they were talking about what you're experiencing now is grief.
Yeah, I haven't read any of that stuff, no.
Yeah,
I was thinking though, when we were just talking about the the lack of control and the uncertainty, and I know a little while ago Ellen DeGeneres got slammed in a big way for equating it to being in prison.
oh yeah,
But I
intervention.
get where she was coming from. I mean, it's the fact that we have no control and we don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, that's the part that makes it feel like prison to her. And I totally understand. Like, and yeah, she's a multimillionaire with a giant, you know, Malibu, whatever, um, property, but it's like, but she still can't leave her house either, right? So she just has a bigger house to rattle around in than the rest of us.
Yeah, and you know something I've learned in this mental health journey, that no matter if you have $1 or $1 billion, that like you can still experience, you know, depression and anxiety and different mental health issues. Like you know, like
And
you don't
your
have to
feelings are just as valid as someone who
exactly.
has less money than you.
Yeah, and I know, well, I mean that's Twitter, right? Yeah, I know you're on Twitter, so it's just a cesspool of people who are angry at different things. So what can you do? But
I
people,
keep saying I need to get off social media because
oh,
of all the, but then I'm like, what else am I going to do?
well, that's it, eh? Yeah, like what? Just scrolling Instagram. Like, I've caught myself. So what I did, I moved my. I don't have a laptop. I have a desktop computer. I moved it from my room out to my living room. So I work from here, and I have the TV on and whatever while I'm working. But I find myself sometimes there's Twitter is on my computer right in front of me, and then I'm sitting on my phone on Twitter. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I'm like, oh God, Ryan, what is happening? Oh, geez.
Well, you know,
Um,
when I love the initiative you're doing for the Ottawa Distress Center, and when you first asked me if I'd be willing to record a video, it was like not a good day. I was not
mm,
having a good day, and the idea of, and I didn't feel like I had my shit together, and the idea of me trying to get on a video and and A, look cheery, and B, look not like I had Chanel bags under my eyes from lack of sleep,
right,
and then try to tell people, oh yeah, it's okay, here's how I'm handling it, because I didn't feel like I was handling it well.
right.
So it just felt like a, you know, that I couldn't deliver a message to say, yeah, this is how you get through it, because I don't know how to get through it, and every day is different. And yesterday I had an awesome day and I felt good, and I was like, okay, I'm calm, I'm happy, it's okay, I can manage, blah, blah, blah. And then last night I didn't sleep. And now I'm like today, not having a good day,
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's like, and it's like, but it's okay to not be okay, because not every day is going to be sunshine and happiness.
Right. Yeah. Like this idea has evolved a couple times. What I usually do in May is I do my Cause for Pods initiative for the last 2 years, and with the dogs and everything, and obviously can't do that this year. And I was just kind of like, what other possible way can you do some sort of fundraiser that maybe is unique that will get people's attention, where you can't get together, you can't really do things with people. And my original idea is I was going to do like an Instagram live, because I don't know if you remember, like when it's still pretty big, but when the pandemic first happened and everything was getting started, like there was Instagram lives and Facebook lives like out the wazoo, like every time, just like notification, like boop, it's live, they're live, and you're like, oh my god, everyone's live.
Yeah.
So I was going to do something like that and just have people pop on and like host like a extravaganza for a night and just have people pop on for 5 and 10 minutes where we just chat. But what I wanted to do is like I wanted to start it on my podcast to kind of test the idea, then bring it to the radio stations, and try to get a bigger platform. And when I was talking to my boss about the idea, she's like, it might be better just to have people record a video, and that way they can do it on their own time, and they don't have to be here at this certain time, and you can just kind of like extend the idea instead of doing it all in one night. I'm like, oh, well, that's a great idea. So that's that's what I went with. And then when you got back to me about the video, and someone else also got back to, a couple of people got back to me, they're like, like I love it, but like I don't really want to do a video, or I'm not good at videos, I don't feel comfortable. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to switch it to share a positive message. If you don't want to talk too personally about what you're going through, and get too in depth with the public on social media about it, like that's cool. You can just do like, hey, it's so and so, we're all in this together. And then I know some other people didn't want to do the video portion. I was like, I'll just like share a post, like just a little nice little message, and just make a little graphic, right? Like it's funny how the ideas evolve, and then like you're saying, not everyone is getting through this positively. So I think that's also an important message to share with people, that like, I know myself, like one day's good, one day's bad, then one day's good, and then like 5 days are bad, like right now. That it's important to remember that it's okay to be having bad days through this, and not just a bad day, but bad days.
Yeah.
But to understand that it doesn't make it better that other people are going through it, but just like, reach out to other people. Chances are, someone else you love, you trust is going through the exact same thing, or thinking the exact same thoughts, and that we should really form sort of like a community, like a broad community, like to help everybody get through it, any way we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, just the distress center, I mean, like they have a huge increase in volume of calls, and I just saw them put the call out for donations. I'm like, hey, this is going to be a service, especially because it's free. Not everyone can afford therapy or has benefits. This is going to be something that's going to be really important for the, right now and the months moving forward, as we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
That this is the mental health part is not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, not everyone has the resources. So I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you helping out with it, because it does mean a lot to me.
Well, thanks. Thanks for inviting me on and listening to me rant.
That is my favorite type of podcast, where there's no real direction, and you just talk for however long we talk for. I even lost keeping track of time. So those are always the fun things.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm an introvert, so I'm a socially reclusive introvert. So at the beginning, I wasn't too bothered by everything, and then it started getting to me, and I thought, you know what? I get it now. I get why the extroverts are losing it. And I thought, I'm going to let my extroverted friends hug me when they see me, because I've never really been a hugger either. And I'm like, that's fine. You can hug me. I get it.
Right. Yeah. I get my energy from other people.
Yeah.
That's, when I'm in a room and people are excited and we're doing things, I'm like, yeah, I'm pumped up. So, when I get alone, you stew with your thoughts and you start cycling through, and that's where I start getting lost in things. So yeah, it's definitely weird. What are some, I know you mentioned some of your books, and just before we go, you had three ones released, which is awesome, but I know you can't get them right now, necessarily in Canada, right? I think you were saying, but what are they so people have them fresh in their mind?
Yeah. So I kind of like have moved away from fitness. I spent 10 years in fitness. So last year I turned 50 and I thought it's time to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So I wrote a memoir about my decade in fitness called I Can See Your Underwear. And yes, someone actually did say that to me when I was teaching a group class. And then I wrote a second book of balance exercises called Balance 2.0, Preventing Falls with Exercise. And this is, and specifically talking about how I worked with my dad last fall after he was in the hospital to help him get his strength back and prevent fall, and how well he did from just 2 to 3 times a week, 20 minutes of body weight strength exercises. And then the book has the exercise in it that I did with him. And then I actually wrote a novel that just came out a couple of weeks ago called Selfred and the Secrets. And it's about a social media influencer and all the secrets that swirl around her and how they get exposed, and the whole concept of anti-heroes finishing on top.
Interesting. I love a good anti-hero.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because one of my beta readers, I think, was expecting it to be sort of like a contemporary romance novel with, like the person's bad and then they have an epiphany and then they become good. And I'm like, I'm not a rom-com person. So I'm like, you know what? Bad people finish on top sometimes. So
yeah.
That's who I wrote about. I don't know if you know the movie The Truman Show.
I haven't seen it, but I know of it. Yeah.
You know of it. So the social media influencer in my novel, it's kind of like a reverse Truman Show. So her whole life is made up. It's like a movie set.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Gotta have to check that out for sure.
So yeah, books are good when you feel like reading them or writing them.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, again, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Ryan. And thanks for what you're doing for the Ottawa Distress Center. They're a really great organization and help so many people. Like you said, not everybody can afford, to get mental health support services. So the fact that they offer all their services for free is so important.
Yeah, exactly. No. So if you're listening and you have the ability to support an organization right now, the Ottawa Distress Center, your local Distress Center, would be a really great option, I'm sure, among a lot of other choices. But think about what we talked about today for sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.